But talk to me more about like this credit score, Alex. Like why this is important, why this matter, the credit history, and how much a credit score is good for a good mortgage.
Definitely. So with an insured mortgage, which I talked about before, which is
Mhm.
less than 20%, ideally you want 680 or above. Now, if there's two of you that are applying for that mortgage, you want at least one of you over. Two of you would be best. But that doesn't mean you can't get a mortgage if you're under that. The number we kind of like to have people above at the minimum is 600. Now, again, because lenders look at each individual person's file, there's so many factors that come into play. Sometimes if you have a bit of a lower credit score, but everything else looks a lot stronger, maybe you have a very high income, you can show that you've made payments. And maybe this just happened when you were, let's say 19, and let's say you're 25 now, but you missed a few credit card payments, you weren't really aware of it, and that's been affecting your credit score for a long time. If you can show that you have a good buyer profile, sometimes you can actually get away with a bit of a lower score. But as some benchmarks, we like to see above 680. Not to say that if it's below that, that you can't get a mortgage, but it makes things a lot easier.
Do buyer has to like pay more maybe in the long term if he has a they has a lower credit score, you think?
So yes, exactly. Typically there's things called like an A lender, a B lender, and then private lending. So A lender would probably be all your big banks.
Mm-hmm.
B lender could potentially be a credit union or another sort of lender. And then private lending, sometimes they'll call that hard money, but that could be different private corporations that lend out money. And so what's going to be the difference there is your interest rates typically. So for instance, right now we're seeing A lenders with rates. I mean, we've seen as low as 1%. However, I would say on average, people are seeing 1.6 to 1.8% right now, which is ridiculous. Like it's historical,
Yeah.
right? And then you move to a B lender. Now maybe you're between 2 and 3%. Again, there's some variance there, but that can really add up over the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you go to private money, I mean, that could be 8 to 12%. That's not really where you want to be. Again, we're talking about first-time home buyers. That's something that an experienced real estate investor might be using for different reasons. But for the most part, if you're buying your own principal residence, you don't want to be touching private money at all if you don't have to.
Yeah. Got it. Got it, Alex. So I I just want to like share the normal conversation. Like I always I always has a like huge interest in real estate. So I talk about it with my friends. But sometimes like people share their stories and they say like, nah, the house prices are very expensive this year. I'm gonna wait, I'm gonna die again next year. But like I try to look up, I try to do some research and I see that from the last 5 years, the prices are just going up in Canada. So what you would say that is there any way we can figure out the right timing to buy, or when is the right time to just buy for first time buyer?
I think it goes back to when you're ready. Like if you're able to get into the market, you're able to purchase, I think that's always the best time. Because the saying goes, it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market. Because real estate is a long-term investment. It's the same if you're investing in, stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, if you're investing in an index fund, right, which is kind of matching the market, those are things that are, appreciating 8% a year on average per se, right? But that's not something you put your money into and pull out right away. You're keeping it there for the long run.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same with real estate. So especially again in the markets that we're in where we see great appreciation in the greater Vancouver region and the greater Toronto area, really whenever you're able to get in, I think that's always best.
Got it. Interesting. So how you would say that, so you mentioned that the market is always like go up and down, but in the long run, it always go up. But how you think like this whole COVID situation impacted the house marketing? Like, did you say more buying in the market or did you say like more selling of the properties?
So in the very beginning, in March, April of 2020, everything kind of came to a halt very immediately. And I think that just really came down to a lot of uncertainty. We didn't know how significant this virus was going to be, how much of an impact it was going to make on people, how dangerous it was. But after those first few months, after regulations and lockdowns kind of lessened a little bit, people started to get a bit more comfortable. And so what you have to remember is there was people in January and February prior to that time, there was a lot of demand for buying, right? Now, all that kind of got held up. So once restrictions and everything came off, there was pent up demand from previous that pretty much was pushed forward and then all just kind of rushed into the market. So there was a massive demand from buyers. There wasn't a ton of inventory, so a number of listings. And pretty much since then, we've seen the number of sales and prices increasing in both, specifically again in the Greater Vancouver and Toronto areas. So now moving forward, the biggest issue again for both markets of what we've seen is there's very low inventory. So there's not enough homes and there's a ton of buyers. So there's a few things that are impacting this. Interest rates being so low is one of the biggest ones because money's cheaper, right? Like I think if we look back to 2018 rates, they're closer to, we'll say 3.6 versus now at 1.8. You're pretty much saving close to $100 per $100,000 of mortgage money. Now that's, you know, getting a bit technical, but if you were to put that down on paper, that is a lot of money, right? Let's just say, as we said, let's say a first-time home buyer buys a $400,000 condo. That's an extra $400 a month in mortgage payments. So that's a lot when you add it up by the end of the year, right? Again, there's a few other factors. I know people were worried about people defaulting on their mortgages, so they weren't able to pay because of job loss or anything else. And now what we've tended to see actually is that the people that lost their jobs weren't in the market to buy real estate. A lot of those people were in the service sector, so they might have been servers, right? Things of that nature that don't necessarily have high claimed income. Now, not to single them out, but you know, if people who are collecting tips and things like that, a lot of them don't claim all that income. So they weren't necessarily even able to purchase a home at that point in time. Whereas some of the middle to higher income earners have actually shown they have more liquid cash at this time. They're actually saving more money by being forced to stay at home and work. So again, that was an argument many people wanted to make, is that we're going to have all these job losses and people aren't going to be able to afford their mortgages and we're going to have all these defaults, but I really don't see that happening. And as we can see with the very strong demand from buyers, there is so much demand right now, and we still don't even have immigration right now. If you look at those numbers, like how many people are supposed to be coming in, what's going to happen when all those people start coming back into Canada? Those people need housing. We're not keeping up with the demand. Like we're not building enough to keep up with those numbers, right? And I think we're going to start to see, again, there's students, maybe foreign students or people that are studying from home right now that may not have the same requirement for housing. So again, there's a variety of factors, but I really have a hard time seeing this market cool down anytime soon, at least for the next extended while. It will at some point. Again, the market moves up and down, but I foresee it, you know, being quite strong for the next while here.
Like, Alex, like you really made a good point here. Like immigration is not that like fast, like which is it used to be. Because of COVID, people are not coming in, but the demand is still high.